Boker Tov, we're entering Sefer Vayikra, and as we said on Shabbat, we are actually now staying at the same stage, at the same degree, at the same time, from the end of Sefer Shmot till basically Parashat Be'alotcha. We don't feel it sometimes, but we read so many parashot all over Sefer Vayikra, and we'll see it in a minute, that everything is being said in less than a month. Meaning to say, Am Yisrael went out of Egypt, Chodesh Nisan, the first one, then Kabbalat Torah and Chet HaEgel, Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, and 40 days and 40 days until Yom Kippurim. Then Am Yisrael started in building the Mishkan. Good morning, Mrs. Fixer, Mrs. Posner, and then Am Yisrael made the Mishkan at the end of Parashat Vayikra on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. We'll read about it on Parashat Shmini. We'll read about it again on Parashat Naso. We'll read about it all the time, but without Chet HaMeraglim, we're at the very end of the Torah. And the question is, why do we need to discuss Sefer Vayikra at all? I mean that it's not an halachic question, because we have a lot of dinim there, but I'll just quote the Rambam's introduction to Seder Kochim. The Rambam starts with his Perush HaMishnah. When he starts with Vochim, so he doesn't start with explaining just Mishnayot themselves. The Rambam starts with a long introduction, and then it's actually beautiful. If you have time to look at it, then he makes a lot of order in all the Korbanot. He divides them into groups from different points of view. But then he says that he has the real problem that he cannot discuss Korbanot because nobody knows what he's talking about. No, we're nowadays without Beit HaMikdash, and we don't learn Seder Korbanot, and we don't know many details of the Korbanot. And that's the first problem with the Korbanot. The second one is that it looks a very technical book. It has a lot of Korbanot, a lot of orders, how to do it, and even if you are a Kohen and you are part of it, it's very technical. The third problem is what the Gemara says in Psochim. The Gemara wants to give a praise, how nice was Avodat Korban Pesach. And then the Gemara says, Shevach hu levnei Aharon, sheyelchu ad arkuboteihem bedah. Meaning to say that when Am Yisrael was shoichet Korban Pesach, and we know from the Mishnah that it was done in a short time, in a very big amount of Korbanot, then the blood filled the Kohanim's feet till their knees. Nowadays, in the 20th or 21st century, I don't think that it gives you such a nice cheshek to discuss the Korbanot. So with this, we don't have any problem, because we're since unfortunately we don't have Beit HaMikdash, so we don't have to discuss actually what we do with the Korbanot. And you know that nowadays with a lot of vegetarians, we have to discuss whether there'll be a Korbanot. That's a different issue. But I'm talking about just the technical problems of the Korbanot, and we have to understand it. I'll quote now Rabbi Yosef Kaspi, one of the commentators of the Mikra from the 13th century, I think, yeah, maybe 14th, but France, and he comes in his commentary on the Torah, and at the end of Sefer Shmot, he says, I'll quote, "Hine ma sheyichlol ze hasefer," meaning to say, everything that is included in Parashat Vayikra and on, all over Sefer Vayikra, ne'emar le Moshe mipi Hashem toch Chodesh Nisan, was said to Moshe in a month, the second month, Reshit Hashana Hashanit Letzeta me'eretz Mitzrayim. Okay, so all the book is said just in less than a month. Okay, ורוב עניינו מצוות מעשיות, וקצתם מידות, so most of the book deals with technical problems, a little bit of it is midot, virtues we see in Kedoshim and at the end of the Sefer. לכן אין ראוי לי לדבר בו כלל. So Rabbi Yosef Kaspi says, I won't discuss it. It's not interesting anybody, and he skips. He doesn't have a commentary to Sefer Vayikra. It goes straight forward from Sefer Shmot to Sefer Bamidbar. He solved I don't hear you, Mr. Posner. If you say something, you're muted. Or
I'm
yeah,
muted.
Yeah. Now I'm hearing you.
No. What about Arayot, Macholot Asurot?
He decided that it's the minority, and he doesn't have to discuss the whole book.
Okay.
That's that's a nice solution, an elegant solution to just to skip all Sefer Vayikra. But it has the same problem as I mentioned in the name of the Rambam before him, that says that nobody knows what it talks about. And since it's a problem, you know that the Rambam himself didn't write in his book things that are related to Malchut Israel, to Memshala, to any modern things, because he just sorry, the Rambam wrote, the Shulchan Aruch didn't write. So the Rambam says, okay, I'll write it because it's a part of the Korbanot, but I have a problem. Nobody understands what it is. And I want to say, what I'm saying now is in the name of Professor Yoni Grossman, that I quoted him several times. He has a beautiful and amazing book on the Korbanot, very, very mumlatz in Hebrew, but very, very mumlatz that he published like 2-3 years ago. And he says that bidyuk, on the contrary, bidyuk lehefich, because when you have the story in Parashat Bereshit, or you have the story of Sefer Bereshit, the story of Sefer Shmot, then you have a real story, and all the tovanot, all the outcome of it is just just made of parshanot. Okay, I can give an interpretation to Leila Seder, but the naked facts of Leila Seder are very simple. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Am Israel out of Egypt, and he did 10 makot. And from then on, everything is just an interpretation, a commentary. It's not pshat. Whereas in the Korbanot, you have a very interesting thing, because let's say that you want to give a korban to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a nedava. You have many ways in Korbanot to do it. You can give shlamim, you can give olot. Enabling you to do two different things must be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you two ways of Avodat Hashem. It's not just a matter of facts, because I can understand that if we have to bring Tamid or Korban Pesach, we'll do it in a certain way. But when it comes to Nedava, you couldn't say that there is a certain way. I can do Nedava in any way that I want. I can, decide that now I donate a million shekels to tzedakah. I can decide that I devote my time just to learn Torah. I can bring a korban. And if the Torah gives you a specific details of the korban, it must say that the korban understands that there is a distinction between the avodah of Olah, the avodah of Shlamim, the avodah of Minchat Solet, and each one of them has his own interpretation. And we have to know that by reading, we'll read now two parashot that are very similar. We'll read Vayikra and Tzav. And as you know, the first perek of Vayikra, second, third, fourth, discusses the fourth different korbanot. And at the beginning of Parshat Tzav, we come back to the same thing and from a different perspective. So it must say that there is an Avodat Hashem. If you have the name of the Korban, you have its details, you have how the Torah describes him, okay? Everything and all the stories around the Mikra, around the Tanakh, that we do find Oila, or we do find Shlamim. Sometimes we find very interesting psukim. I'll just give you an example. If you want to bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu a present of a korban, I would suggest that the best thing to do it is by giving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not just be shoichet a cow or a sheep and give it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they'll fry it, litzlot, but mevushal. Why not? Because it's made im ke'ilu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu eats somehow. I don't know what's the interpretation of it. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu ke'ilu ochel, and it's his mizbeach is like his table, and he enjoys the reach nichoach, and the Torah writes at length, why not giving him korban muchan? You would think that it's weird. No, I'll show you two examples of korban muchan. The first thing is that in korban Pesach, the Torah says, okay, uvashel lo, that you should bring. We read about it in last parshas, in Parshat HaChodesh, that you should bring a korban salui, rosho al kra'ah ve'al kirbo, לא תאכלו ממנו נא ובשל מבושל במים, meaning to say that there was an hava amina to bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu a prepared ma'achal. But I'll go to Gid'on. You know the Gid'on, it's written וגדעון בא, שופטים פרק ו', ויעש גדי עזים ויפת קמח מצות, so he made a korban to the malach, הבשר שם בסל, והמרק שם בפרוק. So הבשר שם בסל, it meaning to say that he wanted to prepare it. So I don't know if he was doing it according to halacha. Maybe he was in Chazal. Gidon wasn't a very Talmid Chochem, but there was a masoret. There was an option. There was an hava amina to bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu korban made. I'll give you another example. The famous Bnei Eli at the beginning of Shmuel Aleph, Perek Bet. ומשפט הכהנים מאת את העם. What's the real everyday life in the מקדש, in the משכן? כל איש זובח זבח, you have a קורבן, ובא נער הכהן, כבשל הבשר, והמזלג 3 השיניים בידו. So you know that the two sons of Eli, what was their problem? What was their chet? That they had taken the basar before it was done properly. Okay, so they come with a big fork, okay, and they come to you and rock you and tell you, okay, bring me the pot, bring me what you bring. כל אשר יעלה המזלג, ייקח הכהן בו, ככה יעשו לכל ישראל הבאים שם בשילה. So it means to say that Nelly, unlike the real what they had to do, took the meat before it was done. Okay, they took it earlier than they needed. When was it earlier? When it was מבושל. Okay, כבשל הבשר, ובא הנער הכהן והמזלג 3 השיניים בידו. גם בטרם יקטירון את החלב וכולי וכולי, ובא הנער הכהן ואמר לאיש הזובח, נא בשר לצלות לכהן, give me your meat, give me your קורבן, ולא, if you don't do it, I'll threaten at you, ייקח ממך לא ייקח ממך בשר מבושל, כי ממך, I'll take it raw, but if you give me, so I won't take it raw, I'll take it cooked, מבושל. So, okay, that's what written explicitly there. So they said, if you bring it now, okay. If not, I'll take it raw. But if you bring it now, it means that it's cooked. So it had a certain way that they prepared the meat, the basar, before bringing it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, it makes the cow better. It makes the sheep better. It has a lot of reasoning. And even though we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to take a raw material and bring it to him, okay? So we have to think what it means. Because when we discuss Cain and Hevel, the first Korban may be written in the Tanakh, so we understand from even by reading, yes, we know Rashi that Hevel brought his best sheep, and Cain brought not מבכורות הצאנו ומחלביהן, he brought מפרי האדמה, just from the plain פרי האדמה. So we have the feeling without even looking around that Cain wasn't okay. Why wasn't he okay? Because he brought secondary סחורה to הקדוש ברוך הוא. It's not nice. Hevel brought his best. Okay, so I really can adhere to it. You have to bring your best to הקדוש ברוך הוא. Okay, we know that Micha asks, it's one of the haftarot, I think of Balak. Micha asks, במה הקדם השם? How would I see the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want? What can I give him? Should I give him my firstborn? Okay, like the Molech, like Yitzchak, that was given to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Or Pri Bechori Chatat Nafshi? And then he says, הגיד לך אדם מה טוב ומה השם שואל מעמך, אם עשות משפט ואהבת חסד והצניע ללכת עם אלוקיך. So he says הקדוש ברוך הוא is not interested in korbanot at all. He wants just the good virtues. Okay, that's another issue that we have to discuss around all Sefer Vayikra, because everything that we read here in details we find in Yirmiyah and in many other Nevi'im that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that I don't want the Korbanot. So we can understand and answer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu basically is interested in Korbanot, but he is not interested in the human being that makes the Korbanot into all the thing, and he understands that he launch and forget, as we say, that he brings his Korban to the Mikdash or Mishkan, and then he thinks, I do what I want to do, leave me alone, I have ikravti, I gave my sacrifice. So that we can understand that there is no contradiction. But going back into the Cain and heaven, when we expect human beings to give HaKadosh Baruch Hu his best thing, and you know that there was a tfisa kazot in ancient times, even before the Torah, that all the olam ha'elili, all the umot olam, all the nations used to bring their gods meat, korban, to be shoichet it, etc. So how is it possible? How is it possible? We have to bring a HaKadosh Baruch Hu our best, so make your best. So cook the meat, not give him a raw material and then fry it, okay? Okay. Actually, when coming to the mincha, we'll see that the mincha is really the best. Is not, you don't take the shibolet from the sadeh, you toichen it and you grind it, and then you sieve it and you bring the best. And you know that Korban HaOmer had 13 different thieves. It doesn't, okay, but even the Menochos had 12. It was in the Kamin Adaka. So we have to prepare our best, not just to take Korban Bli Mum and bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu without it. So here you can see that there is a distinction without even getting into details. Mincha is from the Tzomeach, but it's not the Tzomeach itself, it's a better one. It's a sieve, it's the best of the Tzomeach. Whereas Korbanot, when you take a life of an animal, I would think the opposite, but it's like this. When I come to Korbanot, I take the raw animal as it is in nature. We understand that we cannot bring Baal Mum. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like it. It makes a lot of sense. But then I bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu without shipurim, without improvements. Another thing that we have to see in Sefer Vayikra, and we can read it from the Midrash. If you look, we're not in a Midrash anymore, but if you look in Sefer Vayikra, in Vayikra Rabbah, you'll see a lot of Midrashim that discuss two main topics. The first one is the Yachas to the Oni, to the person, to the poor, the person who doesn't have any money. We might think that if you bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu, you bring your best, as I said, and if you don't have money, so okay, you are honest, but what can you say? You don't have a second or even a third option in bringing just, from your poverty to Kadosh Baruch Hu, because it doesn't look nice. But even though the Torah starts, ואם דל הוא ואין ידו משגת, ולקח מנחה, קורבן עולה ויורד, we have a lot of options, sometimes 3 options. השיר, השירי השירות, and דלי דלות, okay, to the poorest of the poor. So it's interesting that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives an option to the poor, and we have a very, very nice midrash talking about Agrippas. Agrippas was the last king of עם ישראל in בית שני. אגריפס המלך ביקש להקריב ביום אחד 1,000 עולות. He wanted to give הקדוש ברוך הוא 1,000 עולות, like שלמה המלך. שלח ואמר לכהן הגדול, I do it, אל יקריב אדם היום חוץ ממני. Nobody comes today. If somebody comes to bring, it's just me. בא אני אחד. So a poor person comes, ובידו 2 תורים. אמר לכהן, הקרב את אלו. I've come with my ken, with my 2 תורים, to sacrifice it. אמר לו, the coin answers, המלך ציווני ואמר לי, אל יקריב אדם חוץ ממני היום. I am the only one, the king is the only one, who gives a sacrifice today. אמר לו, אדוני כהן גדול. Listen to my story. 4 מצד כל יום. I'm used to hunting for תורים every day. ואני מקריב 2 ומתפרנס מ2. 2 I take for myself, I sell them for earning my salary, and 2 I sacrifice. אם אי אתה מקריבן, אתה חותך פרנסתי. If you don't do it, because the king told you, because of any reason, so I won't go to work, because I feel uncomfortable to work and earn money from the 2 Torim, when I don't do my duty. So please, נטלן ויקריבה. נראה לו לאגריפס בחלום, the irony is that Agrippas dreams, קורבן של אני קדמך. You wanted to be such a big king with 1,000 עולות. The קורבן of an ani was preceded you. שלח ואמר לכהן גדול, לוקח ציוויתיך להקריב אדם חוץ ממני היום. I have told you. אמר לו, אדוני המלך, בא אני אחד ובידו 2 תורים, אמר לי יקריב לי את אלו, ואמרתי לו, I told him, המלך ציווני, the king told me not to give anybody else. אמר 4 אני צד, ואני מקריב 2 ומתפרנס ב2, and that's the end of it, very nice. אגריפס says, אמר לו, יפה עשית כל מה שעשית. Agrippas was a real good Jewish person, yeah, that with being the king and being the last king, with all the covet and honor and etc., he admitted that what the Kohen did was good. And you know the Gemara in Soto that says that Am Yisrael told him Achinu ata, and when they flattered him, it was one of the main reasons of the Churban, etc. But here you see in this midrash that Agrippas HaMelech was very humble, was had very good virtues. So you see here from the midrash that the Oni, the poor person, has his maimad in Sefer Vayikra, and it comes from the Torah itself. It's not, I don't need the Vayikra Rabbah, but if you read Vayikra Rabbah, you read again and again and again. The midrash tries to take the details, the detailed pratim of the korban, and bring them ruach chaim into it. So he wants to say what are the rayonot, the ideas, what are the virtues behind the sins of the korbanot. So in Vayikra Rabbah you really find that everybody is equal in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even the poor. That's one. Another issue, another dagesh in Sefer Vayikra is the yachas to the goy, because let's think, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you that he wants korbanot from Bnei Adam, That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us from Sefer Vayikra, and we have to discuss it how, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu somehow is interested in taking, in eating, in enjoying from the eat and enjoying from the smell, etc. I would think that if Umot HaOlam, if somebody from any other nation brings HaKadosh Baruch Hu a Korban, it will be considered the same thing, okay? And I can bring you many psukim in Sefer Yeshayahu that usually talks about Acharit Hayamim, and then he says, Uvnei Anechar, we read it in any Tanit Tzibur, הנלווים על השם לשרתו ולאהבה את שם השם, להיות לו לעבדים, כל שומר שבת מחללו מחזיקים בבריתי, והביא אותי אל הר קודשי, ושימחתים בבית תפילתי, meaning to say in בית המקדש, עולותיהם וזבחיהם לרצון על מזבחי, we read it in the סליחות, we sing it in ראש השונה, yes? כי ביתי, בית תפילה יקרא לכל העמים. So he looks at the role of בית המקדש, not as a place for just for עם ישראל, but for all אומות העולם. And we know that תפילת שלמה, when שלמה המלך, at the beginning of ספר מלכים, when he found out בית המקדש, so he says explicitly in his tefillah that if the goy comes and davens to you, listen to him, if any of the nations, because it should be a place to all the world. And however, but when we come to the details, it's very interesting that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just talks to Am Yisrael. We don't even pay attention to it, but if we come to Vayikra Rabbah again, we do read a lot of details, that a lot of times that the Midrash takes all the details of Sefer Vayikra and wants to say that Am Yisrael is the real wife of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Umot HaOlam are just a pilegish. I'll read now from Vayikra Rabbah, Parasha Aleph, the first opening Midrash, but Yud Gimel. מה בין נביאי ישראל לנביאי אומות העולם? What's the difference between עם ישראל's prophets and אומות העולמ's prophets? רב חמא בר חנינא ורבי יששכר אמרו, אין הקדוש ברוך הוא נגלה על אומות העולם, אלא בחצי דיבור. שנאמר, כמה דכתיב, ויקרא אלוקים אל בלעם, אבל נביאי ישראל בדיבור שלם שנאמר, ויקרא אל משה. So if it sounds familiar to you, it's because Rashi, the first Rashi of the Sefer, brings it on the very word of Vayikra, where Vayikra in big letters, and the Aleph is small Aleph, okay? So Rashi says, why is it like this? So usually when you write small, it says that it has Aktana, but Rashi understands that it's stressing out. When writing the small letters like this, you stress out that unlike Bilam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu talked to him, Vayikra, meaning to say, carry an occasion, b'mikre, without preparation, to Am Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu nigla, b'dibur shalem shene'emar Vayikra el Moshe. So you see that the first word of the book, Vayikra versus Vayikra, is taken by the Midrash to differentiate between Am Yisrael and Umot HaOlam. Without any reason, you wouldn't think about it. Okay? You have many other interpretation to why it's written Vayikra with Aleph Ktana, but you wouldn't think of differentiating from the first very apostle, and the Midrash wants to say, yes, Sefer Vayikra is the uniqueness of Am Yisrael. Now we talk about just Am Yisrael. And the Midrash goes on. The Rabbi Yitzchak Achar de Kfar Mendi said, and Vayikra el Lashon Tumah, Mashal lemelech, listen to the Mashal, שהיה הוא ואוהבו בטרקלין וביניהם וילון. So his friend is in the same room, but between them there is a curtain. שהיה מדבר עם אוהבו, היה מקפל את הווילון, so he takes away the curtain. עד שרואה פנים על פנים, till he sees him face to face, and then he talks to him. אבל האחרים אינו עושה כן, אלא מדבר ווילון ביניהם, כן? And then Rabbanan gives a marshal, Mashal Melech, that has as an Isha and Pilegesh. When he talks, כשהולך אל אשתו, הוא הולך בפרהסיה. Okay, when he goes to his wife, he goes in public. When he goes to the Pilegesh, הולך במטמונים. אוקיי? So that's כך, אין הקדוש ברוך הוא נגלה על אומות העולם אלא בלילה. שנאמר, ויבוא אלוהים אל המביא מלך בחלום הלילה, ויבוא אל אלוהים אל לבן הארמי בחלום הלילה, ויבוא אלוהים אל בלעם לילה. אבל נביאי ישראל, והוא יושב פתח האוהל כחום היום, ויהי ביום דיבר השם אל משה, ואלה תולדות אהרון ומשה, ביום דיבר השם את משה. So here, again, it's ממש לא מובן מאליו. And again, Yeshaya and Shlomo HaMelech talks about Beit HaMikdash as a universal place, as a place that all the Amim are equal in participation. And we might think that everything we have is must לכלול את כל אומות העולם. And even though from the very first word of the Sefer, in Vayikra Rabbah, we have to differentiate between Umot HaOlam and Am Yisrael. We have to think that, and we have to know that even before the Torah, as I said before, there were a lot of worshipping in all the nations of Eretz Canaan, as we know, that they had a lot of Korbanot, and we have Melech Moab that we see in Sefer Melachim, and we have a lot of ways to work HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Umot HaOlam work their gods by kriving Korbanot. So when the Torah came to tell us all the details of the Korbanot, the Torah didn't come from the limbo. The Torah imitated Umot HaOlam, or saw what they do and said the opposite. We know that the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim has this gisha that a lot of the details of the Korbanot are taken from Umot Avodah Zarah, of the Avodah Zarah. Okay, so he has a constant and repeated way of understanding that a lot of the details in many chukim, especially in Sefer Vayikra, are taken from Avodah Zarah, either to imitate them, or that Am Yisrael cannot go from one side to the other, from being of the Avodah Zarah in Egypt to be of the Hashem, but slowly. So you have to take them to give them the same things differently to Shem Hashem. So it's very interesting that being said everything I mentioned, even though we have a separation between Am Yisrael and Umot Olam, so clear separation, the Torah doesn't need to write it. Okay, the Torah doesn't write it. The Torah says, Adam ki akriv mikem. The Torah, and then we have to certain ways of learning. Adam, you, not Umot HaOlam, whatever. But the Torah writes it as the main thing without even mentioning that Umot HaOlam are not part of it. So again, just to sum up, we have in Sefer Vayikra the real problem that we don't know the details, and we try to relate to it as details as just a lot of mitzvot without ruach and neshama behind it. But as I said, since the whole thing is just ruach and neshama, and since to the same person, the noidev, you have different kinds of korbanot, it must be interpreted on the opposite. That you have, if the Torah gave him several options, and if the Torah relates to the poor so nicely and gives him the option to give his own korban by dalei dalut, so the Torah not only that gave him a cheap sacrifice, but in dalei dalut, in mincha, we have the way that you sacrifice mincha, and in olah you have the way that you sacrifice. It's a different kind of seeing the face of God. And we said that through Vayikra Rabbah we see two main nekudot that we don't see clearly from the pasuk. Firstly, the yachas to the poor, as I mentioned now, and secondly, and it's very surprisingly, the yachas to Umot HaOlam, that Beit HaMikdash is not, as we thought, a place to all the goyim to take part in it. No, but it's just a place of meeting with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And since we know how the intimacy that we see in Ma'amad Har Sinai, in Chanukat HaMishkan, in Vayakel Pkudei, that we see the atmosphere, the fog, the Anan, V'lo Yachol Moshe Lavo Ki Shachan Alav Ha'anan, and you feel that Hashrat HaShechina with Am Yisrael is something very unique. It's very interesting to see that throughout the details of Sefer Vayikra, we'll see that the Hashgacha of Am Yisrael sometimes comes through the mitzvot and through the orders. And even though that you can give HaKadosh Baruch Hu presents and matanot and whatever you want, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is expecting just Am Yisrael to give him, not Umot Ha'olam. We'll go further בעזרת השם שבוע הבא. להתראות, שבוע טוב.
Very nice.
תודה רבה.
Very nice.